Episode 4, 5, and 6 of the Star Wars movies gives us glimpses into what Rebel as well as Imperial pilots fought like. However, this small sample of what they were like is not nearly big enough for us to conclude who had the better pilots. This is why we will be delving into legends and answering the question which faction had the better pilots. We will be judging on factors that include training, equipment, and overall battle skill/technique. Rebel training fell under the guise of the Starfighter Command. Pilot training on the side of Rebels was a lot more impromptu and informal compared to the Imperials. The first part of their training would consist of makeshift training simulators on board Rebel starships such as the Independence. They would then create impromptu training runs through factories such as the Salvage Yard, which Admiral Akbar thought made the pilots more skilled. Many pilots after the training induction would just fly with veterans to try and learn various techniques to hone their skills. Imperial pilots were considered the elite of the Imperial Navy, and in saying this were subject to some of the hardest training in the galaxy, as only 10% of all potential pilots passed the tests. After these series of tough tests, they were to spend a year in one of the Imperial's various flight schools, where they would work with a partner to complete the hundreds of hours of flight drills needed to pass Imperial flight training. Sometimes even the flight schools weren't safe, and the trainees actually had to fight in real combat situations. Those who survived, however, usually made a good impression on their instructors. I think the clear winner for training are the Imperials. The Rebels' training was too makeshift and relied on the natural skill of the pilot rather than the actual training, whilst the Imperials relied on their tough training rather than the skill of the pilots. Rebel pilots were equipped with orange, grey, green or red flight suits. They also wore a vest with life support boxes on top alongside their flight helmets, which included a visor with a special computer system that allowed for ease of targeting. Many pilots decorated these flight helmets to include symbols of personal significance. Imperial pilots, on the other hand, were equipped with black uniforms composed of energy-shielded fabric. In addition to this, they had to wear life support chest pieces with breathing tubes attached to the helmet. This was due to TIE fighters not having life support. Han Solo, a former Imperial pilot, commented that the experience of wearing one of these uniforms was near maddening due to having to endure the stink and sweat, as well as constantly hearing the hissing of the breathing tubes for hours on end. Due to the impracticalities of the Imperial equipment, this point goes to the Rebels, as not only was their equipment more comfortable and more personal, but it was also more practical than the clunky and claustrophobic Imperial uniform. Last but not least, we will be evaluating which of the two factions had better skill and technique in battle. Rebel pilots, although they lacked training, they made up for it with their raw and aggressive fighting style in space. Many of the pilots, in addition to this aggressive fighting style, had lots of experience in dogfighting, and many of the newer pilots looked up to them. A quote from TIE fighter leader Trell Scutu reads, "As a veteran TIE pilot, I understand that the rebellion is a vile movement against the true government. But in all honesty, I have to respect the aggressiveness and the ability of its pilots. Though most of them have not been formally trained, their experience in battle has more than made up for it." Imperial pilots, although thoroughly trained, were never prepared for the shock of an actual battle. This led to some Imperials labeling the TIE fighters as coffin jockeys, due to the astronomically high mortality rate. In saying this, there were a few ace Imperial pilots that the rebellion had come to fear. These pilots were calm, composed, and nimble, and were able to wreak havoc on the rebellion pilots. However, many of these pilots later defected to the rebellion due to the Empire's lack of care toward her pilots. Notable defectors includes Big Darklighter, Tycho Kelku, and Han Solo. Due to the high mortality rate and the high defection rate the Imperial ace pilots had, my point goes to the Rebels. In my opinion, the Rebel pilots possessed more personality and courage on the battlefield, while most Imperial pilots fought in a very reserved and defensive manner. However, this is only my opinion, and feel free to contradict me in the comments. Welcome to the question of the day. Quite a simple question today. If you were in the Star Wars universe at the time of this war, what would your path be? For me personally, I would most likely become a bounty hunter or join a criminal syndicate. Anyways, thanks for watching guys. Don't forget to check out my Twitter and my Instagram in the description below.